All right, folks are coming in now. Give it a second. All right, Mayor Lucas, take it away.
Well, good evening, everybody. And I want to say thank you all so much for being with us. My name is Quinton Lucas, and I'm the mayor of Kansas City, Missouri, and the chair of the conference's Criminal and Social Justice Committee. I was recently appointed to the position by Conference President Nan Whaley to work on what I think are some of the most important issues that our cities and our nation face: public safety, gun violence, racial justice, immigration, voting rights, civil and human rights, among them. And I am proud to be following the footsteps of my friend, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who chaired this committee until recently when she was elected a trustee of the Conference of Mayors. Public safety is among the most important things that impacts our cities. When I ran for mayor, perhaps like many of you, I saw that there were many great things that we were doing. We could have all the shiny buildings in the world, but if we weren't actually taking care of our community, addressing violent crimes, stopping the terrible numbers of gun violence victims that we see on our streets in each and every day, then we weren't making the impact that I think we truly wanted to make. A few things I want to note for introductions. First, as is common with all of our U.S. Conference of Mayors meetings, this session is open to the press. And so they will be here listening, speaking with you, perhaps asking some questions of you later on based on what was shared today. I'd like to quickly as well ask my outstanding vice chairs of this committee on this call to introduce themselves. And so I will ask you, Mayors Gannon, Gloria, Kenny, if you're on, to go ahead and introduce yourselves and talk about what you will be doing in connection with this committee.
Well, Mayor Lucas, is Mayor Gloria from San Diego. Good to see you, Mr. Chairman, and good to see all my fellow colleagues here. Appreciate the chance. This is my first Zoom meeting with you all. Appreciate the chance to lead on border and immigration issues, and hopeful that we can work with one another to address the ongoing concerns that are there. Many of you know border continues to be closed to non-essential travel. That's having real detrimental impacts on many of our border cities, and appreciate the conference's support for trying to drive change on that issue.
Absolutely. And thank you for agreeing to work with us on, I think, some of these very important issues on our committee. And then are any of my other vice chairs here? Just going once, going twice? All right.
I don't see them. No, I don't see them.
Okay, well then we will go ahead and then continue on our next point. I will also note, by the way, usually when I do my calls, I'm talking to you from the mayor's office in Kansas City. I have a 4-month-old at home, and so I had to make sure that I was staying at home today. So I'm in a different spot, as many of you with young children may know well. In addition to being joined by many of our mayor leaders, we're honored to be joined today by the U.S. Conference of Mayors CEO, Executive Director, Grand Poobah, Tom Cochran, and also, of course, by Laura Waxman, who serves as the conference's Director of Public Safety and staffs our committee. Finally, we also have with us our parliamentarian, Tim Wynn, who will make sure, of course, that in case I miss anything in our first committee meeting, we'll have the chance to do some cleanup before we all wrap up, noting that we will be finishing today at 6 Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. So I will note before we move on to considering our resolutions that Mayor Lori Lightfoot unfortunately couldn't be with us today, but she has sent a statement relating to her comprehensive resolution on improving public safety and has asked Laura to read it to all of you. Laura, if you could go on ahead and read Mayor Lightfoot's statement.
I will do that. Hello, everyone, and thank you all for being here. I'm sorry that due to scheduling conflicts, I'm unable to attend today's meeting. I've asked Laura to read my comments. It is my distinct honor to speak to this incredibly important resolution, which seeks to improve our approach to public safety through a holistic lens. As we are all well aware, common sense gun control legislation isn't the only tool we need at our disposal in order to eliminate the scourge of gun violence. We also need to put in place community policing strategies as well as violence prevention methods that simultaneously advance our public health goals. In Chicago and in many of the cities represented by the mayors at this meeting, we are facing not one, but 2 pandemics, COVID-19 and gun violence. These threats to public health have not only devastated Black and Brown communities across the country, but their deeply detrimental impacts remain intertwined, making it all the more difficult to fully eradicate them. As pointed out in this resolution, we witnessed a rise in violent crime at the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis that has only continued to increase. And furthermore, this crisis has also exacerbated the economic insecurity and physical and mental health struggles of our most vulnerable residents, all of which fuel instability and unrest and create environments that are prone to violence. In order for us to eliminate COVID-19 and violent crime, we must come together to put forth solutions that solve the socioeconomic issues that they create and exacerbate. That's why I'm putting forth this resolution for this committee's consideration, which calls on leaders at all levels of government to improve public safety by bringing new ideas and much needed resources to the table. These ideas and resources include, but are not limited to, equitable and accessible educational opportunities, work programs, mental health services, and community-led measures such as violence interrupters. We have to be all in when it comes to addressing the public safety challenges facing our most vulnerable communities. This resolution thus gives us an all-important opportunity for collaboration, and it is my hope and expectation that each of you show your support for tackling these universal challenges by passing this resolution, and that you will strive to fulfill its recommendations.
All right, thank you, Ms. Waxman. I appreciate the comments from Mayor Lightfoot. As you could probably note from what we had just heard, the primary purpose of our meeting today is to consider policy resolutions. While all mayors present are welcome to speak on any of the resolutions, please note that only members of the Criminal and Social Justice Committee may vote on them. Once again, our committee received the most resolutions of any of the conference's 10 policy committees, something about which I am quite proud. It means we'll have a lot of work to do for a little while. We'll note that 18 resolutions have been submitted for consideration. This evening, 2 new resolutions will be offered, one by the Mayor of Newport News, McKinley Price, and the other by my good friend across the state of Missouri, Tashara Jones, who in 4 months has done outstanding work in the city of St. Louis, bringing, I think, a new voice, a new passion to longstanding issues. Do any other committee members have any other new resolutions that you plan to offer? I will pause for a moment and feel free to chime in if you do. Much like chairing a city council meeting, I will just have that be the only pause we have. And I will say thank you. There are now only 18 resolutions as we start this meeting with, which we will consider at the end of our resolution discussion. The resolutions submitted cover a wide range of areas, including public safety, police reform, gun violence prevention, immigration, border policy, voting rights, and civil and human rights. As you can probably tell, this committee has it all. My hope is that everyone has had the opportunity to review all of them. I'm going to read the titles to highlight the issues included among them. And then I believe we may have some further discussion, I think particularly for Mayor Gloria, with I think an exciting resolution opportunity that we have here. So I'll read them in brief, and then we'll have further discussion from Mayor Gloria right after that. Our first item is item 21, in support of police reform. Item 22, improving public safety. Item 23, supporting Breaking the Cycle Violence Act. 24 recognizes the need for a public health approach to hyper-localized community gun violence interruption. Number 25 is in support of federal supervision reform. Number 9, related to federal cannabis regulation and changes there. Number 27, urged FEMA to reimburse cities for COVID-19 non-congregate shelter programs, a significant problem in communities like yours and mine. Number 28, supports for our immigrant and refugee communities. Number 29, support for the integration of immigrants in our communities. Number 30 relates to ensuring that COVID-19 relief and economic recovery for all, regardless of their immigration status, something that I know myself, Mayor Jones, and others in states like ours have to battle all the time. Number 31 protects the rights of detained immigrants and advocates for alternatives to detention. 32 is in support of Afghan interpreters and allies of the U.S. Armed Forces, something that I know all of our cities are dealing with more. I know in Kansas City, organizations like Della Land, Jewish Vocational Services, and others are helping relocate folks in other cities as well. And I know we'll talk more about that, something that is a particularly pressing issue right now. Number 33 urges President Biden to reopen U.S. land ports of entry to non-essential travel. 34 celebrates the establishment of Juneteenth as a federal holiday. Number 35 is in support of voting rights. Number 36 supports the Equality Act, House Resolution 5. Number 37 promotes inclusive spaces and economic opportunity with a progress flag. And then our final resolution speaks to the rights of transgender youth to participate on sport teams that align with their gender identity. The question is now on the approval of the proposed resolutions included in the resolutions packet. To save time, these proposed resolutions will be considered as a group. According to the rules, any member has a right to remove any of these resolutions for separate consideration, which would then be debated and put to a vote individually. Would any member like to have any of these resolutions considered separately? I had mentioned Mayor Gloria before, and I believe there's an item that he would like to discuss in particular. Mayor Gloria.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My intent is to make sure that we stay on schedule. I don't want to, you're running a good meeting here, but I did want to request a friendly amendment to resolution number 32. And right off the bat, I want to thank our colleague, the Mayor of Hartford, Connecticut, Mayor Luke Bronin, for leading this resolution in support of our Afghan allies and allowing me to make some additions. Nobody understands the situation on the ground better than Mayor Bronin, who himself served in Afghanistan. And so we want to thank and acknowledge his service. My amendments within this resolution are simply that they be broadened out to focus on to be inclusive of all of our allies who assisted American troops and coalition operations, as well as clearly stating that our communities stand ready to welcome these brave Afghans and their families to their new home in the United States. I hope that we can have committee support for this amendment, and with hopefully those brief comments, and I believe we have some language that staff has available if they need to show it. I turn the floor back over to you, Chair Lucas.
Thank you so much, Mayor Gloria, and I appreciate the friendly amendment here on Resolution 32. With that, Resolution 32 is pulled for separate consideration. Are there any further resolutions to be pulled for any separate consideration? Hearing none, if there's no objection, the proposed resolutions contained in the resolutions packet, with the exception of Resolution 32, will be approved unless there is an objection. Is there any objection? Hearing none, those items are approved. Now in touch with Resolution 32 in support of Afghan interpreters and allies of the U.S. Armed Forces, which has been set aside for separate consideration. Mayor Gloria has shared, I think, friendly amendments, which have been shared and are available for all of you. The question is now on the approval of Resolution 32. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes, what did I see? I knew I was doing something wrong soon.
No problem. I just wanted to make sure that the committee is clear that first we will vote on the amendment. It is debatable, but when debate is finished, that we can then vote on the amendment. And then once that is finished, then we can vote on the resolution as it is amended or originally submitted, depending on the previous vote of the amendment. So now would be the vote on the amendment.
All very simple and understandable. Is there any debate on the amendment? Hearing no debate. Well, we do have the amendment available to us.
Here's the amendment.
Mayor Gloria, I think, did share some of the important information there. Is there any further debate on the amendment? Hearing no further debate on the amendment, it will be another voice vote. Those in favor of the amendment indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Now the resolution as amended is before the committee. And parliamentarian, tell me if there's any concern here. Is there any debate or discussion on the resolution as amended? Hearing none, the resolution as amended is now before the body. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, the resolution as amended is adopted. The next item of business is the approval of a new resolution in support of the Crown Act, offered by Newport News Mayor McKinley Price. And according to the rules, a 2/3 vote without debate is required to allow a new resolution to be considered. Those in favor of allowing this new resolution to be considered, please raise your right hand if you're on the committee. All right. Those opposed, please raise your right hand. It appears that there are 2/3 in the affirmative. So the new resolution will now be considered. The question is now on the approval of the new resolution in support of the Crown Act. I know Mayor Price was to discuss it for us. I do not yet see Mayor Price. Oh, there you are, Mayor Price. I'm sorry. I'm moving too fast. All right, Mayor Price, you have the floor.
Thank you. There was a student who came out of the Biden Institute, who was interning at the University of Delaware, who was doing some research on this and submitted this to me and asked if I would consider presenting this to the committee. So that is what I've done. I think it reads very clear. It reads very clearly. And unless there are some questions on the resolution, I would submit it for this committee to approve.
Do any other mayors want to speak on this resolution?
Mayor Jones, I want to thank Mayor McKinley Price for submitting this resolution. As someone who, as this was one of the first bills I signed when I became mayor. So we passed the Crown Act in St. Louis and St. Louis County, and this is very important to make sure that we are not discriminating against people of color for showing their hair in their natural state. So thank you, Mayor Price, for introducing this resolution.
Thank you, Mayor Jones, and thank you, Mayor Price, as well. We've been able to enact this in Kansas City. They even let bald-headed mayors introduce such things, and it is something that is making an amazing difference, I think, on folks feeling like they can be themselves in every position in our city. Are there any other mayors who wish to speak to the resolution? Hearing none, the question is now on the approval of the new resolution in support of the Crown Act. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. We have approval of a second resolution, and we'll consider this is the approval of a new resolution integrating behavioral health and mental health services to transform public safety. It is offered by St. Louis Mayor Tashara Jones, and I'm honored to be a co-sponsor of it with her. Again, a 2/3 vote without debate is required to allow a new resolution to be considered. Those in favor of allowing this new resolution to be considered, please raise your right hand. All right. Those opposed, please raise your right hand. And it appears that there are 2/3 in the affirmative. The new resolution will be considered. The question is now on the approval of the new resolution integrating behavioral health and mental health services to transform public safety. Mayor Jones, the floor is yours to discuss the resolution.
Thank you, Mayor Lucas, and good evening, colleagues, and thank you for taking the time to consider my resolution. This resolution speaks to the importance of reimagining public safety by integrating mental health and behavioral health. I first saw this strategy deployed in Denver with their supportive team assistance response program and was able to implement a similar program in St. Louis. With the help from our ARPA funds, I was able to invest in our Cops and Clinicians program where we connect the right professional to the right call so our police officers can focus on responding to violent crime. During our first 3 months of using this model, the program has engaged over 1,400 individuals. We've helped connect residents to resources to meet their basic needs and assisted with housing. We also responded to non-acute mental health needs and acute psychiatric crises. We've been able to divert residents from incarceration and connect them to the resources they need. In addition to cops and clinicians, I'm working to embed 20 to 30 social workers within our Department of Health and Department of Human Services. These social workers will assist with victim support services, provide support for the unhoused, and conduct pre-trial mental health screenings. These are just a few examples of how cities can integrate behavioral and mental health into their public safety strategies. Many thanks to the co-sponsors who have joined on this resolution, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. Do any other mayors want to speak on this resolution? The question is now on the approval of the new resolution integrating behavioral health and mental health services to transform public safety. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and thank you, Mayor Jones, for bringing that to us today. This concludes our consideration of resolutions. Let me thank Tim for checking me where he needed to and for his help as our parliamentarian. I know that some of you may want to add your name as a co-sponsor to some of these resolutions. Any conference member may do this for any proposed resolution through the United States Mayor's Community website or mobile app until the resolutions are considered by the Executive Committee on August 31st. So you have until August 31st to join on with any. We now move to our guest speaker. We'll hear from a good friend of the conference about something very much on everyone's minds and which we touched on earlier: the plight of Afghan refugees, people who were our friends and allies while we were in their country. As mayors, we have an important role to play in making sure that those who settle here are welcome and receive the support they need to build new lives in our city and in our nation. Ali Narati is president and CEO of the National Immigration Forum and has worked with the conference on a wide range of immigration issues for many years. Founded in 1982, the Forum is a nonpartisan advocacy organization working with faith, law enforcement, and business leaders to promote the value of immigrants and immigration. Ali, the floor is yours. We look forward to your comments and your advice.
Well, thank you so much, Chairman Lucas, and thank you so much to the committee members for this opportunity to speak, but also to all the members of the staff of the conference. We have truly been grateful for your leadership over the years on a range of immigration issues as you welcome immigrants and refugees into your communities, but then also I think in some ways even more importantly, help residents of your cities understand the value of immigrants and immigration, even if they don't have that personal contact. And I just want to start with a thank you and an acknowledgement that you have incredibly challenging jobs at this point, much less at any other day. So I wanted to just spend a few minutes today just talking a little bit about kind of what we know that's happening in Afghanistan, how things are beginning to unfold here in the States, but then also forecast to the best of my ability what we see coming down the pike, and really what's the important role of mayors across the country to engage in this issue. So up to this point, the U.S. military, in partnership with a range of coalition partners from around the world, have evacuated anywhere between 80 and 100,000 people. I'm giving you a range there because I haven't seen the recent data, the recent numbers from the end of the day today. What's unclear is that out of that total number is how many of those are US citizens versus Afghan allies. And another piece that's missing is what's the denominator? What is the goal? What is the total number of US citizens that need to be evacuated, much less the number of Afghan special immigrant visa, either people who have applications pending or could be eligible for protection. Secretary Blinken from the Department of State did a press conference this afternoon, and I believe he said that there were approximately 1,500 US citizens remaining in Afghanistan that they were looking to get out. But again, and let me provide a quick primer on the Special Immigrant Visa Program. So this is a program put into place primarily for those individuals who have helped our military either in Afghanistan or in Iraq. There are very stringent criteria in order to qualify for a special immigrant visa. There are multiple security checks. Typically, it is a process that takes anywhere between 12 and 24 months, if not longer. When the Biden administration came into office, there was a backlog of over 18,000 applications just pending. Congress, to their credit, has worked in a bipartisan fashion to increase the number of special immigrant visas available for the population in Afghanistan. That is great. And then also, Congress recently passed, a few weeks back, an increase in funding for the Department of Defense and Department of State to fund the evacuation of Afghanistan. So those are two good things. The challenges we've all seen on television and in the news is just the chaos that continues to take place at the Kabul airport. As I'm sure everybody saw, the president committed to the August 31st withdrawal of US military, and that is having an immediate impact on the capacity, on the military capacity to continue to evacuate Afghan allies in country. I've seen reports over the course of the day that Kabul airport could very well be closed to Afghan allies as early as tomorrow or on Friday, and really just limiting evacuations to US citizens. The drawdown is in essence so that everything is wheels up and off the tarmac by next Tuesday, August 31st. So what's happening here is that people are, hopefully they have been able to get past the airport, get past the Taliban checkpoints, into the airport through the desks, through the gates, and then onto a flight. From there, their biometric and biographic information is being collected by a Department of Defense. So the vetting process, and I'm bringing this up as this is going to be a big part of the conversation locally. The vetting process is beginning immediately. Biometric and biographic information is being shared back to the states through DHS, through the National Vetting Center, and vetting is ongoing as literally as a person is boarding a plane, in flight, transiting through, let's say, Germany, and then if they're getting a green light, transiting to the US. And more details are coming out around the vetting process, and we'll make sure that we move to Laura those details as they become available. Because again, that is just going to be a very big part of the conversations that are going to occur both nationally, but also locally. What's the vetting process, and are people being vetted? So that is.
Yeah, you want to come in 8. Okay.
Sorry. So the vetting process is underway. Most folks who make it to the States, Afghan allies who make it to the States, are coming under the SIV program, Special Immigrant Visa Program. They seem to be first landing at Fort Lee in Northern Virginia or Fort Bliss in El Paso. There are reports that the government is going to start to identify additional ports of entry for people to, in essence, land, finalize their processing and their vetting, and then either be connected to a refugee resettlement organization or be allowed to move within the country to where a community member or family member or larger community is. All of those things on the kind of the resettlement side of the pipeline, those are all being sorted out now. So I think that the story, in my opinion, is going to move from the chaos and the tragedy in Afghanistan, how people are either getting onto planes or getting to Pakistan as refugees, to, okay, what is the impact on communities across the country as people are resettling and hopefully being able to integrate into communities. So there are a few things that I would underscore and offer as points to keep in mind as the conversations are unfolding in your cities and towns. Number one, there's broad bipartisan support for protecting and resettling Afghan allies who served with our military. And when I say broad, I'm saying there's a CBS News survey that was, I believe, released yesterday. 76% of Republican voters, 79% of independent voters. I've been doing immigration advocacy longer than I care to admit publicly. I have never seen a number like this. Now, of course, you've got Stephen Miller, you're going to have parts of Fox News and others who are going to try to really zero in on this vetting issue, question or other questions, and they're going to try to kind of create this division. But at this moment in time, there is a significant opportunity to build a broad, deep, bipartisan coalition locally and nationally in favor of resettling and integrating Afghan allies who served with who helped our military. So that's number one. And along those lines, I should also say, the last count that I made was 10 Republican governors across the country pledged their support to help resettle Afghan allies who helped our military. So there's a conference. There's a consensus that's emerging. Number two, like I said, the vetting process, and we'll get you more details as those come together. Number three, the refugee resettlement organizations are working night and day to help people in Afghanistan, but also across the country. Mayor Lucas, you mentioned some of the organizations even in Kansas City. So I'm sure that in each of your communities there are these kinds of organizations, and I would also offer to engage your law enforcement community as well, because again, our strategy, for example, is always to put a pastor, a police chief, and a CEO on a stage to speak to these issues. So I really do think that formula of faith, law enforcement, and business can really help here. And then third, there's a short and a long-term economic benefit of refugees in cities and towns across the country. There have been multiple studies speaking to that, and we'll make sure we get you those numbers. But this is a long way of saying that there are a number of ways to help your communities really not just understand and see the value of having Afghan refugees resettle and add vibrancy and energy to your cities and towns, but there's also an opportunity to, in my opinion, really strengthen our democracy moving forward. So let me pause there and happy to take any questions you have.
Are there any questions for Ali?
Hi, this is Mayor Jones. Great presentation. Quick question. I read maybe a couple weeks ago that the Biden administration set aside over $500 million to help refugees resettle. And is that, are those funds that will be distributed to cities who sign up to assist refugee resettlement, or do you have any idea
Sure.
about those funds?
So typically, the way refugee resettlement dollars are organized for the country is that they're issued by Health and Human Services, the Office of Refugee Resettlement. Office of Refugee Resettlement then has relationships typically with state offices of refugee resettlement. Some cities then have relationships as well. Typically, those dollars will go to the resettlement organizations and agencies who in essence are working hand in hand with the refugee, their family, and a potential employer, et cetera. So there may be, that's my understanding of the process up to now. That process may change moving forward.
I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have to, that we aren't a cog in the wheel, that we aren't interfering, and make sure that whatever our families need and whatever the organizations need, that they get access to it.
That's a great point. And I would say that the mayors are cogs in the wheel in terms of building and strengthening public support for refugees, but not necessarily, at least at this moment in time, in most cases, the provision of services.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ronnie, thank you for the presentation. Just a partial question, maybe just a request for the conference generally. Very supportive of resettling folks here in San Diego, but as you probably well know, our resettlement organizations are already stretched to their limits with all the traditional groups that have come or are coming currently. Additional funding or services, I'm very concerned about great groups like the IRC, Jewish Family Services, and other folks who basically been in emergency response mode for 4 or 5 years now. And what can we do to make sure that we don't drop the ball with either the new arrivals from Afghanistan or some of the existing populations who are literally 20 miles down the road waiting to cross into the United States right now?
I mean, that's a really important point, Mayor Gloria. And we'd love to be able to work with Laura, the staff, and the members of the conference to advance that sort of strategy. It's just critical.
Mr. Chairman, this is Tom Cochran here. I've communicated with the White House this morning to make certain that our organization is sort of in the discussion. As I said earlier on one of these calls, I was a baby when Saigon fell in '75, and we were very instrumental in helping with that. And of course, we had a similar kind of thing here with Katrina when people moved from New Orleans, then we had to help get them back. And with all due respect to the governors, and we appreciate the number of governors that are out there right now welcoming, there is some concern, I think, by some mayors as to what the position of their governors will be. And while this is certainly between the federal government and the nonprofits, but I have also asked the White House to at least bring us into that discussion, and they assured me this morning that they will.
That's very helpful, and thank you for that, Tom, and the perspective from past efforts with Katrina and the fall of Saigon. I will note one thing to underscore, Ali, what you had said. As all of us who are mayors on this call know, many of the things that we have done the last year and a half are exceedingly unpopular, be it masks or be it relating to other issues. When I talked about, and really in many ways followed the lead of my cross-state neighbor, Mayor Jones, when we said we would happily welcome refugees, other than about 10 or 15 haters, almost everybody said, thank you for that. This is important. How can we help? So this is an area where I think we as mayors have a strong opportunity to lead. I will also second Mayor Jones's point in terms of, and actually it was key to Mayor Gloria's resolution, which is to the extent that we can find even greater resources, given the challenges that so many of our resettlement agencies have now, I was talking to some, my staff was talking to some in Kansas City who talk about how you get $1,250 to somebody, and then from there you kind of say good luck. That is very tough, particularly with some of the challenges we have on housing affordability in all of our communities. Making sure that we continue to push further efforts there, I think, will be an important role for this committee and hopefully for the conference more broadly. So with that, are there any other questions for Ali? Mayor Fisher.
Yeah, Mayor Q, I would just encourage all mayors to take advantage of this moment to leverage the goodwill in the community for some fundraising for refugees. We had a Women's Cup soccer tournament in our city here this past week, and one of our great professional athletes is named Nadia Nadim. She's kind of like the Muhammad Ali of women's soccer, an Afghan refugee. And we've raised about $100,000, half of which is going to support our local resettlement agencies and half of which is going to the United Nations efforts to support girls and Afghan women who were very concerned about their treatment there. So there's a lot of folks asking how they can help, and I would just commend this as perhaps something all of our mayors could do to support Afghan women and girls and resettlement folks at this time.
And along those lines, Mayor, there's a lot of talk about potentially,
large coalitions coming together to really convey a constructive, positive message, but really just also to try to do as much as we can to coordinate efforts on the ground. So I'm hoping like in the next, 3 or 4 days, those coalitions will come together, and I'll circle back with Laura, but then we'll also put together a toolkit for your communication staffers, so that you can have access to the talking points, the data points, and really stay up to date on what's happening and where the issues are going. So we'll get you that information as well. Good. Yeah, if you could put your contact info in the chat, I'd appreciate that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Mayor Fisher, for that insight as well. With that, we'll close the discussion on this topic, knowing that there will be much more that we'll discuss over time. It looks like we have moved fairly well and efficiently in today's meeting. We have a few special guests. I know Mayor Ganem was able to get on the line, and so it is good to at least see you today. And I saw Mayor Whaley driving around today as well. And I don't know if the president of the conference has any, oh, you're parked. I don't know if you wanted to share anything with us, Mayor Ganem. I'll make sure we get you in.
No,
well.
I wanted to make sure I was able to participate. It's a difficult day for me, but I wanted to make sure, and I'm glad. I was amazed at the efficiency you just demonstrated. I'm with a president of my city council. I say this is the way the mayors operate: efficient on very important topics, some local and some global. But I appreciate your leadership and everyone participating. And thank you for letting me have a couple words. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Ganem, and look forward to working with you over time. Madam President. You're muted, though.
Muted.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. Muted.
We got you.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, guys. Well, I really, Mayor Quinton, I'm so grateful for you and your great leadership in this meeting. As Mayor Ganem said, it is super efficient with really, really important topics, as Tom brought on about as we work to deal and receive welcomingly Afghan refugees in our community. And just want to echo Tom's point about making sure that cities are directly involved in that, and to make sure that in some places, in some states, we don't have friendly governors per se, but we do have very friendly cities. And so making sure those connections are thoughtful and intentional with the federal government is going to be really, really important. And really grateful for this this meeting and the standing committee's great work in that effort. So great conversation, and I wish we were all in person in Austin, but we will get to see each other soon, and the conference and its advocacy and its work moves on no matter what.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Mayor Whaley. It is good to see you, and thank you for joining us today and your work and the tough decisions you've had to make over recent weeks for all of us. But we appreciate you looking out for the safety of all of us. So I want to say we have come to the end of our meeting. Unless there are any other comments we might have, I will just note a few things. First, I hope we do have the chance to meet virtually between now and our winter meeting in Washington, scheduled for January 19th through 21st. I hope that everybody, gets their act together. We're able to get more people vaccinated. Some of us, like Tashara and I, don't have to fight some of our state leaders about responsible things like stopping the spread of COVID-19, but that is a chat for another day and another committee. And I hope that by the time we get to the winter, we're able to be back together. In the meantime, we will continue to push on these issues, and I'll be reaching out to all of you in terms of getting another virtual meeting scheduled. I also encourage you, if you have any questions or any things you would like to discuss, to reach out to me or my staff. Laura has contact information for me. I'm easy to find. I'm Mayor Q on Twitter. Mayor Q was actually a normal name before the last election. Things got weird with my letter, but at the same time, you know what? You can still catch them. So we look forward to making sure we have lots to discuss ahead. And I will just make this final point. I said at the beginning, public safety, making sure we're addressing issues like refugee resettlement. Really, these are, I think, the big and heavy issues that make our jobs interesting and that much of our public is talking about. Our ability to address them, our ability to pull some of the partisanship out of them, and to frankly just talk like mayors always do, I think can be an amazing measure of success for this committee. And I look forward to being a part of that. So we get 18 minutes back to everybody. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and we will look forward to being in touch here again soon. Unless I missed anything, Tom or Laura or Tim, you all have a fine evening. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you.